We know that women are the reason America has declined. We gave them the right to vote, and look at our country. Look how quickly it has declined since. But
The Georgia Virtue presents the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. It is election eve, and this is episode 243. This week we have Florida Man, the Fed being the Fed, Mules of El Salvador, the Wild Wild West, and election predictions. I'm Dave Roberts. With me is my partner in this endeavor, writer, journalist, TV personality, dog mom, and owner of the GeorgiaVirtue.com, Jessica Szilagyi.
Hi, Dave.
How are you?
Never know when I'm going to get there. Never know.
No, you don't. You don't. I had one I decided not to torture you with.
I appreciate it.
It. Paybacks are hell.
Uh-huh. That's exactly right.
And
1-800 Connie.
Yeah, exactly. I ran it by Connie. She goes, "Oh, the things I will talk." She goes, I'll message Jessica directly. So, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, paybacks are hell.
Exactly.
How are things south of the Nat line?
Oh, it's just nice and quaint and full of stupid government.
Yeah, that's a theme. That's a theme. I told you I kind of went off on not the president of our local chamber, who's actually a paid employee, but the member CEO of the chamber for pushing the SPLOST, and replied to his email he sent out to all the members supporting the SPLOST and chewed his ass. Mostly not because whether or not I support the SPLOST, which I don't, but it has nothing to do with business.
Right.
It doesn't benefit business. Doesn't hurt business. Actually, it kind of does. If you
higher taxes.
If you can buy large ticket items one county over for 1% less, what are you going to do?
Go one county over for 1% less. And
I do. I can choose where I pay my sales tax because of my equipment, and I buy mid six figures in equipment every year, and not that that's a lot of money. 1% of that's not a lot of money to the county, but that's Dave's little protest. Yeah,
but I've never really understood the concept from a chamber to support, 1% here, 1% there. I mean, to go from sales tax of 6% to 8%, like in what universe is that a good idea for a business entity? Even if you're talking about it not being in their box, but I just don't understand
the mentality behind it.
Yeah,
it's to build parks and things like that. Now look, it's not one penny. First of all, the United States currency we do not have a penny. We have a 1 cent piece. We do not have a penny. Mm-hmm. Now, common vernacular, that's fine. But for government entities to put things like your pennies at work, there is no penny in the U.S. currency. The British have pence, which is where that comes from. But if we were talking about T-SPLOST, and you could argue that from the chamber's point of view of, hey, listen, if we get better transportation, that brings more business to the area, which in turn grows the tax base and all that. You know what? That's an argument we can have on that particular project, and that's a viable argument to have within the chamber. Even if it's a e-SPLOST, being partners in education, it's arguable. But to build parks, how the hell does a park help me as a business owner? It doesn't. Paulding County, we have a new reservoir. We had to have the reservoir. Cobb County was cutting us off of water. Not in a vicious way. Just they said that the rate Paulding County was growing, they could not support our need for water. We had to have a reservoir. Okay, fine. Mm-hmm. They want to know what to do with the land around the reservoir. What kind of park people wanted equestrian centers, all sorts of stuff. So Dave, being the a-hole, pipes up. Sell every bit of land except for required buffer around a water source and pocket that money.
And they said?
Nothing.
Oh.
Do you want frisbee golf? Do you want an equestrian center? Do you want just you know what? If you have to have something, how about camping? Because it doesn't cost a lot to maintain campsites.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I live in Bullitt County, obviously, and Bullitt County has some really nice amenities, as does Effingham, which is a neighbor of ours. But there are some other counties that have very lackluster parks. And, you know, I grew up playing, I mean, our neighborhood in Atlanta had tennis courts and we all had yards. And, I mean, back then you could play in the street and things were different, obviously. But, like, I grew up playing rec soccer ball and I went to camp at the rec department and they weren't like, I mean, they're much nicer now. Like, what we've done to parks is they're a lot nicer now. But the amenities even then were leaps and bounds beyond what I see down here. And a lot of times, like, the argument is there's not really anything for the youth to do in rural communities and their parks suck. And that's true. Doesn't mean I would advocate for taxing more. I mean, I guess you guys have amenities. Like, at some point it's like, okay, enough is enough, right? Like, I mean, that's the argument against all taxes. But in terms of park amenities, like, at some point you can only have so many walking trails. You can only have so many fields and green spaces. Like, you max out.
Some people want an aquatic center. And I'm like, if aquatic center was a good idea, actually there is a private pool out here that you can join, but that's open to the public. You just join to go to the summer. But they want an aquatic center, all the stuff that's and then these same people are the same people that go on the government Facebook pages and stuff and whine, piss, and moan about their property taxes.
Or they're like, we've got to move because it's too expensive to live here.
Right. And look, the only time I go to the parks is when I'm going to one of the political things. If I have to go to one to vote, or if there was a beans and cornbread thing that the state reps put on down here, and I stopped by that and said hello to everybody and all that stuff. That's the only time I go to the parks. I don't use the parks. You know, I understand people do, and I have. I've taken my niece fishing at one of the parks that has ponds on it and stuff. Hey, look, walking trails and ponds and things like that are relatively low impact after they're built.
Right.
But like equestrian centers, they still have to be maintained.
Playgrounds. But that's, I don't know, man. I don't. This is not even on our show sheet. It's just one of the things that's at the top of my mind that just irks me when I see them go. It's just 1%, or it's just 1 penny. It's just a penny. No, it's not. It's 1%. Well, and then on top of that, you know, yes, sales tax is a phenomenal way to do taxation for the things that are actually governmental responsibilities. The problem is that it's on top of every other freaking way we're taxed, and it's never enough. Property taxes, income taxes. I mean, it's every fee, fine, and permit, like, it's never enough. So, yeah, I'm going to be livid about another 1%, and I'm not going to vote to tax myself more because once you give it to them, they're like, well, we can't let it expire. How will we maintain these things?
Sell them.
Right.
I sell them, burn them down. I don't care. But hey, no. But then again, I'm an a-hole.
Yeah.
I just want to live my life, help my customers, and do what's necessary, and enjoy my life. And that kind of stuff doesn't do anything for me. You know, if they want to hold that property, now they bought a house where the reservoir is going. It was a very nice house, and they paid a lot for it. And they're going to knock it down to build something in it. But turn it into a hunting area, WMA. Hand it over to the state. Let the state have a archery only hunting area over there. And I'm not saying that because I hunt. I don't. Just that, again, low impact. And handing it over to the state, at least the county itself doesn't have to maintain it.
What's the purpose of this reservoir?
Drinking water. Flush my toilets.
At the park?
No, in the county.
Oh.
Because like I said, Cobb County told us a few years ago, we were, between Cobb County growth and Paulding County growth, they were unable, they felt they were going to be unable to maintain the water agreement that we had through 2030, or something like the 2030, 2050, whatever it is, that Paulding would have to have its own water. And this Richland Creek was bought with the idea of they're going to siphon some of the water off the river and fill up the reservoir, and that's what they're doing. We had to have the water, so that really wasn't an option. We had to have the water. Did we have to have the McMansion with the pool? No. Do we have to have all the property around it? No. Like I said, hand it over to the state. Let them have an archery only or a WMA in the area. I don't care. Just don't tell me that I need to pay another 1% on everything I buy so somebody can have an equestrian center.
Right.
Because Dave hates horses.
And children. And baby children. Horses.
And baby horses and old people.
And the sick.
Yeah, and the sick. A tribute to Dave is what you put on here.
I did because... Well, you're from Florida, and didn't you used to like NASCAR?
I do not do NASCAR.
Didn't you used to?
No.
Well,
it
it seems like something you would do. And then
screw you.
And then
I really like left turns.
And then the issue is the correlation versus causation, which is why it really made me think of you, but
Well, up until recently, NASCAR, or race cars in general, were exempt from the Clean Air Act. Mm-hmm. So they were using leaded fuel. Mm-hmm. Of course, leaded fuel performs better. You don't have to have a catalytic converter, so you don't have that power loss that you do in unleaded fuel. So there's this correlation between lead exposure in the air, such as at a racetrack, and IQ points and test scores. This was interesting. That board that we all think of with the pictures and the strings going between them everywhere. That they're going to say that NASCAR switched to unleaded gas boosted test scores near racetracks. What?
It's a leap. It's a big leap. A real big leap.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. I guess saying that NASCAR should not be exempted from the regulations that everybody else abides to. At least that would be a decent argument that they're not special. The lead damage is part of the brain that's responsible for things like memory. Einstein had leaded fuel all around him. Mm-hmm. It is tough. It says researchers found that lead exposure lowered student proficiency by rates of 4.4% percentage points on Florida's state-mandated exam in the early 2000s. How many races does each racetrack have a year? It's like 2 weekends, isn't it? Something like that. I mean, I think Atlanta has 2 races down at the racetrack in south of Atlanta. I understand they have multiple races that weekend, but I think a truck race and a qualifying and other stuff and all that. It's hard for me to believe that an occasionally used racetrack was putting enough lead in the air in the state of Florida to dumb down the entire state. But truthfully speaking, I know if we're talking about Florida man, he doesn't have a whole lot of room to give any IQ points up.
No, it's just it's an interesting leap for sure. I don't know, man. It's an interesting leap, and it's not like this was on the Hill. These researchers from Cornell published this in a journal to tell people that switching to unleaded fuel made people smarter.
Yeah, I mean, in an academic setting, I could understand if you were working on your PhD thesis, if you wanted to find the correlation between leaded fuels and test scores, that's one thing because it's all theoretical. When you start publishing this stuff or you start spending grant money on studies like this, I don't see the point.
Well, so they can tell people that Americans were robbed of a collective 824 million IQ points.
824 million IQ points. Is that
from leaded gasoline?
So, oh God, it's a hell of a stretch. It's a hell of a stretch.
I wonder if that was like everyone paid the same amount of IQ points, or some people were disproportionately affected.
I mean, I guess it depends on where your trailer is in relation to the racetrack. I don't know. I've been to one NASCAR race in my life, and the only reason I went to it is I won tickets on the radio to get in the club or whatever. I said, yeah, I'll go do that for a weekend. Screw it. And my friends who are into NASCAR make fun of me. That ain't where the real fans sit. Well, I'm not a real fan. I'd rather sit here and drink free beer and I eat appetizers while I watch people turn left. Such an elitist.
I'm still laughing at me telling you it seems like something you would do.
Meanwhile, we're just insulting Eric, who's a big race fan.
But he doesn't go to NASCAR. He goes to that, like, petite stuff.
Le Mans.
Yeah. The French racing.
Le Mans. Well, you actually have to turn left and right.
He goes to the sophisticated races.
Yeah, the Formula One. Mm-hmm. The sophisticated races.
The French. Can't win a war, but they'll win some races or something.
If instead of a checkered flag, it's a white flag at the end. So the Federal Reserve decided to knock us in the teeth again with a 0.75 point increase.
Okay, let me ask you something. So all these people who don't think that like inflation is actually happening, do they just not read this kind of news and not consume it anywhere? Because I feel like they even put this kind of like tidbits of what we're about to talk about. Like they put that on the 6 o'clock news. They'll occasionally, it'll be on the radio in news cycles and stuff. Are they just not consuming it anywhere? Or like why?
Who's saying it doesn't exist?
There's lots of people who they'll be like, things are more expensive, but they don't think that there's anything that like, they don't understand like the Federal Reserve and how they're manipulating the entire market from.
Right. Well, here's the thing. T-bills, treasury bonds are what drive mortgage prices. Mortgage prices are not related to distantly related, but not directly related to the Fed funds rate. The Fed funds rate is the rate in which the banks borrow from the Federal Reserve. So what does that mean? Your car interest rates go up. So your average car buyer, when he goes into the dealership, this is one of the things that I abhor buying cars, they go in with a payment in mind more than the price. So in order to get the payment they want, when interest was damn near free, they could afford a lot more expensive car. When that interest rate comes up, payments come up, So instead of being able to afford that $90,000 car, now they can only afford a $75,000 car. So as those more expensive vehicles sit on the lot, they will have to come down in price. Another thing that interested, there's something called lot financing. So what lot financing is that's the rate that your car dealer pays, because they don't buy the cars directly. They don't go out and buy it, but they pay interest on it, on the vehicles that sit on the lot, in order to keep that inventory. So all that goes in. So when they have to keep putting that interest out, they start marking those cars down, because it's better to sell it at no profit and move that piece of metal off the lot than it is to keep it and stand. I'm going to stand firm on my price. So that's when we start seeing prices coming down. Same thing happens when mortgage rates go up. Mortgage rates go up, home buyers slow down. They can't afford that McMansion anymore. They have to start looking at houses, because again, your 90% of home buyers, probably more than 90% of home buyers, are mortgage buyers. So when those mortgage rates come up, when the treasury bills come up, they can't buy as much house with their money.
Well, and the thing about with the cars too is, and a lot of people, like, this is a side note from the Fed, but the thing a lot of people don't understand is that the dealership sets quotas basically of how much they've got to move. So They want to ditch that stuff because they get incentives and funding, and that's all manipulated too. Everything's manipulated. You're just a pawn.
And right now, I tell you, for the Bronco, Connie wants to look at a Bronco. If you go to a lot and find one here, it's $20,000 over MSRP. Mm-hmm. You will never see me buy a car over MSRP. Right. That's just not going to happen. We'd have to be in a really bad way. Her little car that she has now just explodes, and say, okay, we have to have something now. But that's going to slow that down, because you can get the guy who could get financing at 0% or 1% or 2%, wherever it was. I know when I bought my truck, I think it was 2%. The only reason I financed it is 2% is less than inflation. So why wouldn't I finance it?
For sure.
I'm losing less money, but when that car payment rate starts going 6, 7, 8%, well, now the cash starts being king, because I can make immediate 7 or 8% by paying cash on that vehicle.
For sure. You look at, when I bought my Explorer in 2012, my interest rate was 1.8%. It was it was nothing to finance the car. Nothing. Yeah. And your cash cost you more than 1.8%. Mm-hmm. So, had you walked in with cash, it would that cash it would cost you more than 1.8% to buy it. When you start talking about, you could have that cash sitting in investments or sitting in your IRA or something like that, actually making money versus going and buying a depreciating asset with it. So at 1.8%, it makes absolute sense to finance that vehicle. In a higher rate environment, your cash buyer is king. Your cash buyer is winning when the guy that can go down, put 80% down on a car or buy it outright or whatever, that person's winning because they're not financing at 4, 5, 6, 7%. And honestly, with inflation right now, the car will depreciate slower than the dollar. And I know we're getting kind of heady into finance and into financial theory when it comes to credit versus cash buying, but the dollar today is worth a hell of a lot less than it was 2 years ago, and it's only going to get worse. Right. So your money will never be worth as much as it is today. Yeah, and in fact, the amazing thing is some used cars are appreciating because of the lack of vehicles on the market. So I could trade my vehicle right now for about what I paid for it. Well, there for a while they were calling people. Oh yeah, they called me. Yeah, and I said, "And buy what?" Right. I guess I'm just gonna grab my tools and just walk with 2 cans of refrigerant, one in each hand, and start walking everywhere. There's nothing to buy. Well, yeah, it's just like the housing market. Like, sure, it's a great time to sell. Where are you going to go?
Right. And that's exactly why we're staying in our little house right now. Is there's nowhere to go, and the house is about paid off. So there's no return on investment for us selling this and going and financing something.
Right.
Because the house that I want, it doesn't exist unless I start spending seven figures. And let me tell you something about me. I'm not spending seven figures.
Well, and not right now. I mean, I have a friend who's building a house, and like from the time that they were having things approved, the costs were just going up and up and up. Like they had to go back to their construction loan person and say, we actually need more money because the cost of things was just going up so quickly.
I don't know if I said on the show, I've got a really good friend of mine who built a house. He's on 80 acres out in Calhoun. He bought his lumber package in either December of 2019 or January of 2020. Paid for all the lumber going on his house, paid for the roofing, all that stuff. He bought the whole package for the house.
Thank God.
Now, it wasn't all delivered, but that hardware, the people at the supply house, going through 2020 as he's building this thing, were griping every time he got a delivery because they're losing money. Mm-hmm. They thought it was great to have all their money up front, and now they're losing their butts because they're under contract to deliver these goods
at that price.
At that price. And he really did. He walked away very lucky on that one. On a sidebar on that, he let his wife pick out a lot of stuff, including the roof pitch. And she does not understand roof pitch, so he ended up with a third floor.
Nice.
His attic had like 12-foot ceilings.
Nice.
So he just went ahead and finished out the top floor.
That's hilarious. Welcome to your bigger, better home.
Yeah, roof gets delivered. He goes, what the hell is this? But yeah, she's like, I don't know. They just told me, they started giving me numbers. I just picked one.
I mean.
But the Fed raising rates, that's going to have a cooling effect. The problem that it has for people, my costs aren't going down. But if you finance an air conditioner, your costs are going up. Unless you can go and pull the money out of your account or whatever, your costs are going up. So that financing rate, where a lot of companies were doing 0%, which 0% is BS anyway. It doesn't exist. You don't actually pay 0%.
For it somewhere, right?
Yeah, you pay for it up front instead of on the back end. But with instead of low rates, now you're paying on an HVAC on a loan for HVAC equipment 7, 8, 9, 10%. All that stuff, your home equity loans are tied into that Fed fund rate. It's called prime rate is what it's based on, and prime rate is based off of the Fed funds rate. Obviously, the bank is not going to loan money to you for less than they can borrow it from the Fed. So when money was basically free, you could get your home equity line or a home equity loan at 1, 2, 3%, whatever it was. Now it's going to be the new normal is going to be 5, 6, 7, 8%. And that's on real estate secured loan. I can't imagine what unsecured stuff's going to look like.
Yeah. And they keep saying that. I mean, every time we hear about the rumors of another baseline increase, it's higher than the last time they said they thought it was going to have to be at the next rate. The projections just keep getting higher.
The problem I have with the Fed's raising rates like this, and look, the Fed fund rate going up, we're not waiting to see what the effect is. Mm-hmm. So it's not a on-off switch like a light switch. So when they do an increase, you have to step back. What's the effect? What happened? And you have to have a time for that to happen. Best example for that is anybody who's ever had a smoker. Have ever smoked a piece of meat or something like that. If you make adjustments to the intake and the air intake, the oxygen going into the fire to keep the temperature low and slow. Well, if you say, okay, it's a little too low and you open that vent and allow more oxygen, you have to wait to see what happens Or else if you say, well, it didn't raise it high enough, fast enough, so you open it more, what happens is you overshoot your goal. And now you're trying to cool that off, and it's very difficult to do at that point. So I heard Ken Fisher on a business channel today. He owns Fisher Investments. Say when you become the Fed chair, you lose your brain. And that goes for all of them, Alan Greenspan and on. They're not waiting to see the effect of what they're doing before they do something else. And you have to see where the ripples go before you start acting again. Have they overcorrected? I don't know. We don't know yet. Because,
how could we? Yeah.
Yeah, because we haven't had time to adjust from the last rate increase to see what's going to happen. Because that hasn't hit the market. It hasn't hit the streets yet. The people shopping for cars haven't hit the streets yet with the last 0.75% increase. So that money is not out there yet. So to immediately come back in with another 0.75%, that's, again, we're not going to know what this rate increase does until probably April, if not July. And people don't like to hear that because we're in a now, 24-hour news cycle, now sort of mentality. But that's not the way economics works. When you start looking at macroeconomics, is what we're talking about here, global and macroeconomics, things don't happen now. They happen slowly over time. The gears turn. And you have to see what the effect is before you can start adjusting things. What's going to happen is we're going to get stuck in a recession with high interest rates. So you're not going to be able to finance your way out of anything because it'd be too damn expensive. You're not going to afford anything because we've got runaway inflation. So that's where we start talking about stagflation. That's when we start talking about 1976, 77, 78 under the Carter administration, that stagflation where interest rates are high and so is inflation and nobody can do a damn thing about it. And that's what we're looking at here. And this all traces itself back to getting off the gold standard. Mm-hmm. You know, that's another discussion all to itself. In fact, the guy to have on the show to really talk about that would be Shane Hazel, who is super, super smart, especially for a Marine. Super, super smart. Oh, my Lord. But super, super smart guy, and he understands that stuff. And I've seen him on Kennedy talking about, on Fox Business, talking about coming off the gold standard and the effect that has had on, the negative effect that's had on, you know, not Wall Street, but Main Street, the person going into the store to buy groceries. And I think we've been on that subject too long, but this is a good time to remind you that these are our opinions and not those of anyone not on the show or any respective company for which we may work, own, or otherwise associate ourselves with on a regular or irregular basis. Also, you can find other episodes and relevant stories over at georgiavirtue.com. El Salvador.
Yeah, they're the mule of the week. The entire country, the government, they're the mule of the week. I came across this article on Thursday night that said that in an effort to combat gang activities, they have sent inmates from their prisons and jails to destroy the tombs of gang members because I guess around this time of year, normally families go to visit the graves of their loved ones. And so,
yeah, Day of the Dead. Right.
So they send them with sledgehammers and pry bars. And any of the tomb that have the mark MS for the Mara Salvatrucha gangs, they destroy them. I don't understand what this does.
Nothing.
Except for people who might not be involved.
Yes, exactly. One, it's destroying private property.
Do they have that in El Salvador?
I don't know. You have a kid, they go wrong, they're still your kid, you still love them. You bury them, you pray over the grave, especially in Latin America with the Day of the Dead and things like that. It means a lot to you to ask for forgiveness for their souls. It means a lot to them. I don't think this discourages gang activity, because if you're in a street gang, you don't care what's going to happen to your grave. You really don't. I mean, I don't think many of these guys get into these street gangs because they think that they're going to have a wonderful headstone. They get into these street gangs a lot of times for protection, to be part of something, because you're either with them or you're against them. And if you're with them, you're able to protect them. You know, they can protect themselves, and their families are protected because they're now in the family. Really, the rise of gang violence is a failure of the government to protect its people. El Salvador was a huge mess when I was a kid. I remember a kid I went to school with was adopted out of El Salvador, and he had a bullet scar. And when he was a very young child, during the revolution in El Salvador, he was shot as like a toddler.
Jeez.
The first person I knew with a bullet wound. That I knew on a social level anyway. I'm sure. I mean, I grew up in South Florida. I knew many of my friends' grandparents were Holocaust survivors and stuff. But the first person that was my peer that I knew that had a scar from a bullet was a kid out of El Salvador. El Salvador has been a mess. That means El Salvador has been a mess for 4 decades at least. Mm-hmm. In my lifetime.
It's a terrible place.
And it has so much potential.
It does.
You know, when you look at Costa Rica, no standing army. They have a police force, no standing army. Mostly peaceful, mostly safe. Beautiful tourist attraction. Lots of American dollars go flowing into Costa Rica. And they make war with exactly no one. The only time I ever had a cross word with anybody in Costa Rica was in San Jose, in the capital city, and that's just like any other city anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. That you may feel a little uncomfortable being around somebody, but it wasn't like I was worried about MS-13 or like worried about the 50 people that get shot at a Cancun resort or something like that. It was never that sort of uncomfortable. It was just, hey, you know, you gotta watch yourself, watch your wallet. You know, you may get pickpocketed, but there was no real violence. And I think that all these nations down there have that potential.
They do. But then they say stupid things like, you know, our plan is that there's no graffiti so that the people feel safe. Well, I'm pretty sure that marking a tomb with MS and then sending people to tear them down with sledgehammers and pry bars isn't going to make people feel very safe either.
Right.
They said that they've arrested 56,000 people since the end of March of this year for gang activities and gang ties, because the president there has suspended some of the constitutional rights after gangs killed 62 people in one day, which, don't get me wrong, like obviously you have a crisis, but 56,000 people?
Yeah, they're locking him up and throwing away the key.
Where are you gonna put all those people?
And here's the thing, it's an overreaction, but it is a reaction. One, I think they call it a state of exception down there, and I'm sure that's a translation thing, that it's essentially a state of emergency. So what El Salvador's got is their version of President Lincoln. We're going to suspend habeas corpus, and we're just going to throw people in prison. You look like you're a gang member. You know, throw them in the jail. Instead of addressing the other stuff going on. And look, Mexico, similar problem. Mexico is a failed state. It's a narco state. The Mexican government controls very little of Mexico. And until recently, the cartels had an agreement with the government to leave the tourist areas alone.
Sure.
There's so much money that comes in, especially through Cancun, because it's so close to the United States. It's cheap flights. College kids go down there. It has been widely accepted up until recently that that's off limits. That the Baja Peninsula, which is where Cabo San Lucas is, Cancun, and a couple other places are off limits. We're just not going to fight each other there. We're going to leave that alone, and that has gone out the window. With even not organized violence, there was a guy, I think I shared the story on my personal page, who was going for a can of dip and hopped in the cab to go to a store to buy a can of dip on his way before they go to the airport to fly out. And the cab driver was in on it, took him somewhere where he was ripped out of the vehicle, beaten, cut up with a machete, thrown into a ditch and left for dead, where he lay there for 2 days and finally crawled himself out, not speaking a lick of Spanish, looking for help. And
Holy crap.
he's recovering now. But
that's horrific.
It is, and it goes to keeping your head on a swivel. It's one of the reasons not one of the reasons. There are several reasons we're not leaving the country this year. We're vacationing in the United States this year, which is unusual for us, which is the most elitist thing I think I've said to Connie lately. Is we were wondering where to park at the airport when we go out of town, and I said it's been so long since we flew domestic.
The domestic. Oh my god!
We've flown on the domestic side that I'm not sure where to park.
That's funny. You'll be like, the limo driver will find out.
I was trying to arrange a limo for our vacation coming up, and no one wanted to pick us up and drive us where I wanted to go. So I'm going to have to rent a car, which means I have to fly sober, which is outrageous that I have to fly sober.
Well, I'll be praying for you.
You should.
Mm-hmm.
Either that or get drunk early and just sleep, because I'm going to be out. I've got hours and hours I'm going to be traveling, so I can sleep that off.
Jeez.
So it's a wild, wild west out in Arizona, particularly Maricopa County, as far as part of it. I like to mention Maricopa because they like to stay in the news for their stuff.
They do, and they have about matched Georgia for their news since the 2020 election. But more recently, this is a peculiar one. I guess they've had people from, there's two different organizations that have been doing this. The first one is Clean Elections USA, and they were, I guess, carrying guns and taking photos of people going to the ballot drop boxes. And so a federal judge intervened last week and said you can't do that. You've got to stay at least 250 feet away from locations with the ballot boxes or from the actual ballot drop boxes themselves. Obviously, this is so that, I'm assuming that these activists are trying to capture faces and stuff so that they can recognize if there's multiple drops made or a person coming back more than once or whatever. They're also, this is the part that is kind of odd to me, but 250 feet from locations is for the people with the guns. 75 feet is for filming or following people within 75 feet of the ballot drop box. But they are not allowed to speak to these individuals within the perimeter unless they're spoken to first.
Yeah, that to me is weird. Now, It's one thing if it's harassing speech, but good morning is a violation of this federal order. I don't understand.
How are you going to prove it?
Well, I don't know. I don't understand carrying long guns. And look, I'm a concealed carry guy. If you have ever seen me outside my house, unless I'm in the airport or in the courthouse, I've got a pistol on me. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it is. You don't know. It's concealed. It's there for my protection. You're not going to see it. Unless I start getting way fat again and it starts poking out through my shirt. But you're not going to see it. I don't understand the need to stand there. And if anybody opposes that order as far as the firearms go, that means you're okay with the Black Panthers and BLM standing outside polling places with their firearms. because that's what they would do. They used to stand outside places with baseball bats and firearms to intimidate people who they think would not vote their way, to stay away from the polls. And conversely, who else would do that was the Ku Klux Klan back in the 50s and 60s would do the same thing, stand there in their hoods with weapons outside of polling places. So the carrying of long arms and something with body armor and stuff, and I think the body armor stuff is overblown. So I think what a lot of these guys are carrying is plate carriers, which if they don't have plates in them isn't body armor. It's just decoration. It just will have extra magazines, stuff like that. I don't understand the purpose behind that. I understand pictures. If you see somebody stuffing a ballot box, you see somebody walking with a stack. Now this is AP. AP said they did an investigation. There was no, I can't remember what they said. Something they said there wasn't a whole lot of fraud with ballot stuffing, and I say that's not accurate, because we have undercover stories out of, I think, Texas, where a woman was talking about ballot harvesting and things like that. It is not illegal to drop off multiple ballots. Mm-hmm. If I could take 2 from here and drop it off in a box, from mine and Connie's, or if I have an infirm neighbor who says, "Hey, I can't, would you mind dropping this off for me?" Fine. That's okay. What I can't do is go through a neighborhood, have people filling out ballots, and then take them myself and go and drop them off, which I know happened in 2020. We know it because we have the evidence from Project Veritas and folks like that who went undercover with these folks that were ballot harvesting. We know this happened. So I don't have a problem. The photo thing, I think the judge has exceeded his authority.
And the speaking.
Absolutely. He's exceeded his authority. The firearms, man.
Well, here's the thing, though. Here's I'm not a fan of it, and I wouldn't do it, but here's why I don't like the... And we, a distance between the door, you're not allowed to campaign from there. Like, I believe that, like, you don't want to have a bunch of scuffle and crowded. Like, it should be a line. It should be orderly going in and out of the polling location. If people want to speak to a pollster or an exit poll person or whomever, that's their right. But I mean, I think we all kind of understand, like, the basic 150, like in Georgia, I think it's 150 feet from the
150
door.
feet, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I don't know is it's specific to these groups, but how do you know somebody's associated with this group unless they're wearing a shirt that says, that has the name of the Clear Vote or whatever it is on their shirt? But how do you know? How do you know that I'm not just carrying, because you're allowed to carry outside your pants. You're allowed to open carry in Arizona. How do you know I'm just not walking down the block carrying a pistol and happen to pass a ballot drop box?
Well, my thing is that, we have cops that carry, and there's been issues in South Georgia where in small towns, like, police departments will hang out in the polling location to try to intimidate voters, and because they want to influence the municipal election, and people don't know that they can't see the ballots and I mean, like, so the police can do it and the government can do it, but regular citizens can't. That's where I break.
I disagree with any restriction on the Second Amendment, period. I should be able to carry my pistol into a polling place. Mm-hmm. All gun laws are unconstitutional as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
But should voter intimidation be illegal? Abso-friggin-lutely it should be.
Yeah, but
I shouldn't be able to,
the government is deciding what is, and the problem is, it's just like every other free speech issue, is that the government is deciding what is intimidation.
What's intimidation, what's not.
I'm not intimidated by somebody merely having a gun on their hip. That does not scare me. It makes me feel better.
Well, unless you flag me with the barrel, I'm not intimidated by your long rifle either. I'm intimidated by these dumbasses voting, but nobody's out there protecting me. Yes, let's bring back the the tests before you vote. Look, there was a group, and I can't remember who they were. They're related to BLM. I was in Houston the year that we had the big snow in Atlanta. The last big snow. What's 20? It was the foot of snow. It wasn't the snow jam.
Oh, okay.
But I was out there at an equipment manufacturer flew us out there to tour their factory and all that stuff. And these guys were posted up in the airport, and they're all in paramilitary garb and crap like that. Their boots, their pants bloused into their boots and stuff like that. And I just walked up to one of them, and just laughed in his face, and he was not happy.
I bet not.
Well, I don't get intimidated easily. Mm-hmm. I mean, so what are you going to do? You know, I understand that I'm not easy to intimidate. I understand. I'm 6'1". I'm a big dude. I can handle myself. And maybe somebody who doesn't have my personality, because I'm so understated.
Of course.
And wilty. I'm a wallflower and a shrinking violet. But no, voter intimidation is absolutely wrong. To stand outside and go, you are going to vote for so and so. You are going to vote for this person. You are going to vote for this person. Yes, that is absolutely wrong.
Right.
But to say that I can't have a pistol on my hip, or say that only certain groups are eliminated from this. So if you're not part of this group, you can take pictures. And if I'm taking a selfie outside the ballot drop box, like I'm taking a selfie of myself, am I taking pictures within the area? I don't know. The judge, the order is a temporary order. There's a lot of stuff to be hashed out with it. I don't think it passes legal muster.
But just like all the other problems that come along like this, it'll be over before.
Right. So yeah, it's just exactly the rent suspension or the eviction suspension, all that stuff. Oh, it's just temporary. By the time a judge actually says, or by the time the court actually hears the case and says, you can't do that, they go, oh, sorry, I only got away with it. I only got away with it for 30 months. Sorry.
Sorry, you're broken in foreclosure.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, your tenant never paid you and you can't afford to keep your rental house anymore.
Just stop being poor.
Just stop. Just stop? Why are you poor? Right. Just get money. So we got some election predictions. They're predicting 5 million voters in this midterm.
All
in
the
Georgia.
suppression. All the voter suppression.
All the suppression. All right. So where are you on the Senate race?
Are you asking who I'm going to vote for?
No.
Oh.
No, I have never asked you that on this show, and I will not.
Oh, what kind of show is this?
One with integrity, I hope.
So I'm on. Well, I mean, I think everyone knows there's going to be a runoff. I think it's funny that the numbers. So Herschel and Warnock seem to be getting closer, but their percentage is going down. Like,
yes, they're dropping together.
Right.
Yes,
but they're getting 44, closer. Like, I think Herschel
44,
is gaining.
45, the last Fox News poll I saw, 44, 45, where it was 48, 45.
Yeah,
so
people are like, the more you talk, the worse you both get.
Yeah. And Warnock is running some, the latest commercial, and you know who I was talking to about this one, is Warnock serving Thanksgiving dinner. So he's got a big tray, and he goes, "Don't let politics ruin Thanksgiving."
I hate those commercials.
Well, here's the thing.
When they do that.
It's a friggin' threat. What he's saying is, vote for me, get me 50 plus one, or else I'm going to ruin your Thanksgiving.
Ain't happening, sugar britches.
Sugar britches. Look here, Baldy.
It ain't happening. No, I mean, so I think I think it's pretty much guaranteed that there's going to be a runoff. And then, of course, just like in 2021, when Loeffler and Perdue had their runoffs, it's going to come down to turnout. I don't know what happens then. I mean, Republicans are historically very good at getting out to vote on runoffs, but look what happened last time. I think that also had something to do with the fact that our president first said, don't do anything for them. Then he was like, actually, yeah, and you go out and vote for these two. And then they sucked anyway. And I mean, there was so much more, and it was so complicated in 2020 2020's runoff. I don't think we're going to have those types of complications this time. But I don't think we've ever seen where the numbers of the two leaders have declined as we've gotten closer to election day. I can't remember another time of that.
I stand by historical precedent that runoffs tend to favor the challenger. Mm-hmm. Because now this is a special case because I don't think all these votes are going to Oliver. I think people are skipping the race.
Yeah. Well, and pollsters will tell you that whoever comes in second is likely to prevail in the runoff. But like you said, that's not necessarily going to be the case here because they're not all Oliver. I think there's a lot of Oliver votes, and there will be more. I think there will be more Oliver votes than people know today because they don't currently know there's going to be another name there.
Yeah. But
in a runoff, I don't know where they go.
Here's the thing, and this is what people don't understand when they say, and I've got a friend on my Facebook who's really upset, who actually went after Oliver. You're stealing votes from the Republicans. No, he's not. Historically speaking, libertarians poll more or less equally from both parties. These are people who are disgusted with both candidates, and they come from the left and from the right, who are disgusted with their candidates. That'll go libertarian. And Libertarian Party has as many people from the left. Chase Oliver, Obama Democrat, who moved over to Liberty, who got fed. I think he also got older and matured a little bit and found Liberty. And then you have Shane Hazel, who I believe was traditionally right wing, that went libertarian. So the voters happen the same way. Is people from the left and from the right that agree on individual liberty tend to, and people who are just disgusted. It's a protest vote. They're disgusted with it.
That person on your Facebook page must have been around those NASCAR races with all the leaded gasoline.
No, he's actually quite accomplished. Well, he's actually a very smart guy.
Well, it is just asinine, and it's such a cop-out of, like, it just makes me mad when people say that because it's suggesting that Herschel or Warnock are deserving of our votes.
Well, it's also assuming that's a binary choice. Has Herschel done anything to earn your vote? I'm not talking about you, just general your vote. And you have to wonder. Now, I'll tell you, Herschel's media is crap. It is crap. It's him standing, smiling at the camera and going, I talked about my mental health. But he's not laying any zingers. He doesn't have the personality. Warnock's got a great personality. And it comes through on camera. Warnock has an outstanding personality. I, again, don't agree with him, don't like him, would never vote for him. He doesn't like me. He and I would never agree. But he has a great personality on camera, and it comes through the screen when you watch it, how good his personality is. He's funny. He's witty. It's almost like he spent his entire career standing in front of people talking.
Mm-hmm. And he has a good media team. Oh,
outstanding media team. Walker is not. Look, Walker's accomplished, and like you said, he's getting a little cocky. I actually like what he said to about Obama. That was, I've run companies. Have you? And if Obama had got involved in a race I was running in, I might say something similar, like, I've run a company. What have you done?
I know, but I don't want someone who's run a company, because David Perdue proclaimed that, like, that running this idea that our elected officials should be business people is irrelevant. Like, do you understand economics? Do you understand the proper role of government? I don't care if you've spent your entire life unemployed and living like you're a trophy wife. I don't care. Well, I do care because I'm not really big on women politicians, but a trophy husband. I don't care if that was your job.
Feminist ever.
I know. I mean, some of them are like, well, we know that women are the reason America has declined. We gave them the right to vote, and look at our country. Look how quickly it has declined since. But look what you're doing now. You're getting me off on a tangent. All I'm trying to say is that, I don't care what your background is. I care if you've had a change of heart or some sort of economic impact or government ruling your life. It has changed your life, and you want to be in government because you don't think that you are better equipped to make decisions for me, then I support you being in government, because that is the prerequisite, not if you've successfully run a company or you've done this job before or you're just getting started. Like, none of that matters. Well,
firing back at Obama kind of does, because he's the one who said you didn't build that.
Okay, but I mean,
that so within that, firing back at Obama, it's fine. But you're right. I don't care who you're married to. I don't care how many times you've been married. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're straight. What are your policies? And look, that's where Ross Perot was really good. Was this is what I'm going to do for you. Same thing when Newt Gingrich came in with the contract with America, is he laid out exactly what his policies were going to be. You put me in the speaker's chair. This is what we're going to do. This is my plan. This is my contract with you. Whether you agree with it or not, at least that was what Gingrich was putting out, was this is my contract with you. This is my policies. This is what we're going to push for. And with that sort of mandate, that's what I have. But do you I don't think the American voters have the bandwidth for it anymore. They don't have the bandwidth to understand policy. They think they're voting for American friggin' Idol. Who do they like more?
Oh yeah, I mean, he played UGA football.
That goes with Burt Jones too. Speaking of,
we're kind of running out of time.
Yeah, we are running out of time. All right, gubernatorial race.
I think
runoff or no?
No.
Okay. I saw a poll today where neither one was at 50%, but I honestly see Kemp at 52, 53%.
I mean, his lead over Stacey was not like that in 2018. It just wasn't even close.
Right. And Stacey's already sounding desperate, where she says, well, we knew this would be close. She's already preparing her team for loss. Lieutenant governor, you think Burt Jones runs with it, so to speak?
I think going down the ticket, I think Republicans, I don't think Democrats have gained the momentum because people didn't buy into the Stacey Abrams stuff this time. And I think that, I think Republicans are I think that our milquetoast slate is going to show the milquetoast Democrat slate that George is still a little bit redder than we gave him credit for.
You think any surprises in the ballot questions?
No, but if people want to know about them, they can go to thegeorgiavirtue.com.
Yes, please, yes. And if you don't know,
vote no. If you don't understand the question, vote no. If it's that important and it fails, they'll bring it back. I promise you.
All right, quick curveball. You think Oz beats Fetterman?
I do.
I do too. I think Oz absolutely. Fetterman's falling apart. Look, what they're doing to Fetterman is absolutely awful. He had a stroke. He doesn't know what's going on. I watched the debate with between Oz and Fetterman, and Oz took his foot off the gas. Mm-hmm. As a physician, he knew the guy. He didn't wail on somebody while they were down, which politically is not the best thing, but it does show that he at least has a soul. Like, I got to lay off this guy. All right, Jessica, do you have any closing thoughts?
Go to thegeorgiavirtue.com for the answers to the ballot questions. And by answers, I mean, like, you will know what you're voting for, but you should, anyway, go ahead. Yeah,
and when I say go to Georgia Virtue, it does not say this vote yes or vote no. It explains what these things mean.
Yeah, like if you vote yes, this is what you're voting for. If you vote no, this is what you're voting for.
Tomorrow is election day. Vote, don't vote. That's your choice. You are totally allowed to skip races. If you don't have an opinion on a race, or you don't know the people, or it's you don't know who's running for agricultural commissioner, you don't understand what the agricultural commissioner does, skip it. It's okay. It's totally legal. You don't have to put an answer in everything. It's okay. You can skip races. You can vote just for governor and leave. You can vote just for senator and leave. It is your right to vote in any or all of the races that are listed on your ballot. So as we're running long, thank you very much for listening. If you made it this far, like and share us on social media. Yeah, like and share us on social media. I want to give a big thanks to my partner in this endeavor, Jessica Szilagyi, Eric Cumby, who we insulted on racing for a good 15 minutes.
I did not insult him. I said he goes to the sophisticated races.
He goes to sophisticated races.
With the white flags.
With the white flags. Le Mans. I'm Dave Roberts. Have a great week.
Won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.